Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Syeda Kissa and I am the Program Officer and Research Associate at South Asia Research Institute for Minorities. Today we are discussing the impact of Islamophobia on the human rights in South Asia. Our speakers are Khaled A. Beydoun. He is currently living in London, Muhammad Asif Khan from India, and Professor Dr. Ahmed Qadri from Pakistan. I hope you all are doing well. As you all know, Islamophobia is on rise across the world. So we want to know your views about this situation. So now I would like to invite Professor Dr. Ahmed Qadri. He is founding director, Islamic Educational and Culture Research Center, US, Canada and Bahrain. And he is also a former Dean Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences and also the Faculty of Islamic Studies, Karachi University. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. Over to you, sir.
Welcome. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thankful to the organizers who really wanted to create peaceful environment in the world through such a beautiful topic. And this topic would be helping out people to know how the world is turning itself. When I looked at the topic first time, I was smiling and I was thinking about the world behavior. Obviously, the term of Islamophobia just after September 11 is becoming a bit popular in the Western world because it is a pure production from the Western society, and there must be some reasons, because the term in social sciences, once introduced or taken or borrowed, it means there may be some kind of facts, there may be some kinds of stereotypes, or there may be any other reasoning. So the reason may be right or wrong, but the reality is still waiting for the rational approaches, the methods. Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and India, SAARC countries. These are the countries which are noted for their cultures, their socio-political behaviorism, their relationship, foreign policies, and extra-societal variables, intra-societal variables, and these variables are working throughout the world, and it is onward transmission. Sometimes we see that things are floating from Pakistan, from India, from Bangladesh, and sometimes we see that things are floating or they are taking place in the world from other end. The term of Islamophobia, Muslim phobia, or some other keywords, terrorist, terrorism, state terrorism, whatever you name. As a matter of fact, we will have to see the role of religion or religions with reference to religio-political elite, not only in Pakistan, India, Bhutan, or South Asian countries. We will have to see specific role of religio-political elites in the world. and how they are promoting actual meaning of peace in the world, or they are using the term of peace for the sake of their own political interest. Just after September 11, the world is changed. The recession has created the theory of political economy with a new conceptual behaviorism, digital management, or the global war, or global relation, or global psychology. In social sciences, the experts, they would be utilizing their terms according to their convenience and environment. In Pakistan, obviously Pakistan is a part of world, very well connected with the international affairs or international activities. While a nation is specified as hyphenated terrorist due to some social activist or religious thought, they only select their own gray areas. They only travel to that specific zone where they want. So, first thing for such research is impartiality. Impartiality is a basic norm or essence of the research. A researcher has no boundaries. As we have friends from India, we have friends from other countries. Research does not have any boundary, and research does not have only slogan. It's opposed to reality. Reality is something else. Let me mention that the areas, the countries, states, which we always see that Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, etc., they are very well known in the world. Why? Because of their contribution in the Western world, boosting their economy, participating in their politics, having power corridors, and using the latest communication skills. Either way, these countries constitute 3.4% in the world's land, which means 1.8 billion. It is not a joke. So many scholars, people believing in peace and tolerance, they love to see human being with respect. But how the respect would be restored, how the peace would be addressed, since there are stereotypes and self-created signs which may create a very specific environmental control conditioning. And this is happening. United Nations, again, there is a very identified question how the United Nations is playing its role. Number two, the countries and their representatives, how they are having their interaction with each other. Only game of blame cannot solve the existing issues. The scholar should come forward, crossing the boundaries, seeing the ground realities, admitting these facts or submission before the peace that religion, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Islam, does not allow war of aggression against any nation for the sake of this reality, to promote, come up with new ideas and change the control conditioning situation in the world, which is forcing political groups or interest articulated groups to dominate over the people who are in majority, or over the people who are in minority. And who will do it? Obviously legislature. But legislature, head of the state, judiciary, international court of justice, or your municipal law, or your local law, or international law. According to Oppenheim, local law means basic facilitation of the people belonging to every part of the world, because law is made for humanity. It's true that municipal law would serve your country, the territorial identification, but once if you come out from there, the scholars, now this is time for the scholars to play, especially the scholars from social sciences, to play their vital role without blaming anyone. I could see myself when I was in US representing Muslim society or Islamic society before our other friends for interfaith dialogue. We tried not to be judgmental, but unfortunately nowadays we are judgmental. And when I say we, it includes everything. How the statements are being conveyed, and how our foreign policy makers, they are sitting in air-conditioned rooms, just issuing injunctions, fatwa. No, it would not serve. The basic service for the humanity is to create such intellectual forum in which we would scientifically, academically, and impartially prove that we are for humanity. We respect every religion, every culture, everyone, but we would not allow anybody to create new science according to them and draw a line of demarcation between or among the people or the countries, just to use for the sake of their own political entity, political identity, and political slogans and political interests. And this is being done. No one can deny the fact that, yeah, Taliban, of course Taliban, Al-Qaeda, yes, Al-Qaeda, Houthi, yes, we say, but how about support? From whom? International agencies, what is their role? How come that the think tanks are working for the militant forces, economic groups, interest articulated groups on the name of politics and political liberty and political freedom? How the French leader de Gaulle says, de Gaulle clearly mentioned in Fifth Republic, and its constitution assures about the human rights. But look how the things are being cultivated and turning their faces from here to there, and just they are moving like anything. In Pakistan, sometimes we see the subculture or subcultural divisional head is becoming more than Islam. Shia, Sunni, Wahhabi, Deobandi, Chaklalvi, Barelvi, Ahl Hadith. Yeah, of course, these are beliefs, but no matter. It may be your personal affair. But on the name of Shia, Sunni, Wahhabi, Deobandi, no one is allowed to kill others. How about the role of Vatican City? How Vatican City practically is involved to stop such judgmental paraphrasing from the Western world? Islamophobia, right? What kind of fear do you have? What kind of things do you have in your mind? Why don't you go for dialogue? Why don't you make your United Nations is only a place where the people would read out their handwritten statement? That's all. It would not serve. As used to be League of Nations. Did the same. Did not control. And after COVID-19, September 11, recession, socio-political behavioralism or the situation in the world, and conflict between Pakistan and India, some other factors are also working on the same page. Who would see? Of course, the rulers of the state. But the scholars would specify that the term of Islamophobia itself is a reflective term which creates hatred, which creates a negative impact of culture. Cultural interaction means respect with such a manner that nobody would enter into your territory. But territorial zone does not belong to mindset. You can enter in the land, home, but you cannot cross the boundaries. But one thing can cross the boundaries, which is called thought. So thought-provoking relationship must be established. Islamophobia, people living in India, Muslims, I'm talking about Muslims, or anybody who has beard, when he lands in any European country, he is suspected. My goodness, why? Who has given you this right to see? Through observation. Yeah, of course, Homeland Security is most important phenomena, but it does not allow you to create a question mark against religion, person, intellectual property, or contribution. No, international law gives me this opportunity to move on, to see the world with my actual natural freedom. People say, yes, natural freedom, that's why we are making cartoons. That's why we are creating all these sketches. No, no, again see the rules of international law. And let me mention here that the first article or the first Declaration of Human and Civic Rights of 26 August 1789, France. All these rights have been mentioned here. That the Article 2 of Declaration, the aim of every political association is the preservation of natural rights and respect for humanity with reference to religion and beliefs. In Pakistan, in India, this is responsibility of legislature. This is responsibility of all these countries to protect the people who belong to your religion. They are your responsibility. But what is happening? The ground realities are different. Just only being judgmental, you have created a frame where there is the name of Muhammad, whether his name is Ahmed, whether his name of any Muslim guy, or maybe like some other things. Just only see the history, what happened between Jews and Christians. Just like the history, you will find even what happened with some other cultures and religions. I don't want to go for that. Even in our South Asia, I think this is time to see how can we address. Islamophobia is a self-created or self-generated terminology which is creating a kind of image of Muslims in the world that we have fear from terrorists. Okay, terrorist does not mean only from one culture, one religion. Terrorist may be from any culture or from any religion. Extremism, again, it is a psychological problem. Just you show me a single person in the world who is not extremist or fundamentalist. Extremism is it needs MMPI testing. MMPI testing would take you either this person is right or wrong, while a person holding all kind of powers, when he says, yes, I am ready to remove this from my country, it means that he is crazy, he is abnormal. His mental state of anxiety and depression must be checked by those who have expertise. But nobody asked. And the scholars, they might be having pressures because there may be some political pressure, state pressure, and the pressure from agencies, pressure from or some kind of interaction. Oh, I'm getting this this project from this country, from this area, from this person, from this person. These things have spoiled us. We will have to come out from this scenario. I'm not generalizing. I'm very specific. I'm not specifying any specific zone or state. But grant is given to that scholar, not necessarily to all, but mostly, who could serve the purpose of specific areas of interest. And this is happening in journals. This is happening in writing popular articles. And just you make a picture laughing at or playing like of someone. Obviously, somebody would be doing it. So while you say, I did it, so your greatness would be, as a political scientist, I see that if you admit, yes, we did it, but I think we would not repeat this mistake. Let's handshake and let's go for this, for the better, then things will be okay. Otherwise, na khuda hi mila na visale sanam, na idhar ke rahe na udhar ke rahe. We would lose everything. For whom we will be living here in this world. हम कहते हैं ना, उर्दू में थोड़ी बोल लेता हूँ, जरा सा अच्छा लगेगा उर्दू भी, कि हम अक्सर बेचते कहते हैं, अरे साहब मैं तो बड़ा मायूस हो गया, बड़ा महरूम हो गया. तो मुझे गालिब का वो शेर याद आता है. हिंदुस्तान से हमारे कौन भाई हैं, कौन दोस्त हैं हमारे हिंदुस्तान से? आसिफ भाई हमारे डियर, थैंक यू वेरी मच. कि मैं जब गालिब के कब्र पे गया तो मुझे बड़ी हंसी आई. और मैं हिंदुस्तान कम से कम 7-8 बार जा चुका हूँ. जवाहरलाल नेहरू यूनिवर्सिटी में भी मैंने पेपर प्रेजेंट किया है, मैंने हैदराबाद दक्कन में भी किया है, देवनागरी यूनिवर्सिटी में भी किया है, बॉम्बे में भी किया है, मैंने अजमेर में भी किया है, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ पाकिस्तान को मैंने प्रेजेंट किया है. मैंने काफी जगह गया हिंदुस्तान में. बड़े प्यारे लोग हैं, बड़ी मोहब्बत वाले लोग हैं. लोगों के दिलों में नहीं है. मन अपना पुराने पापी था, बरसों में नमाजी बन ना सका. तो मैं जब गालिब के पास गया तो मैंने कहा कि सबसे बड़ा मोहसिन अगर कोई इंटरकल्चरल रिलेशंस का है तो वो गालिब है. गालिब से बड़ा. तो उसका एक शेर मुझे याद आया, मैं आपकी नजर कर रहा हूं, कि कभी नेकी भी उसके जी में अगर आ जाए मुझसे, कभी नेकी भी उसके जी में अगर आ जाए मुझसे, जफाए करके अपनी याद शर्मा जाए मुझसे, हुए हैं पाँव ही पहले नबर्द इश्क में जख्मी, न ठहरा जाए है मुझसे, न भागा जाए है मुझसे. We are in such, we are going through a transitional period, and believe me, not only for Muslims, also friends from the Western world, they have realized this is a political game, and only just to gain support from the people, because they say कि ये सब साउथ एशिया के लोग बड़े एक्सट्रीमिस्ट हैं. हाँ भाई, मेरे से खाते हैं हम गरम चीजें भी खाते हैं, हमें मालूम है, हम खाते हैं, लेकिन हम बर्गर भी खाते हैं, हलाल बर्गर, हलाल. और हमें ये भी मालूम है कि जीने का सलीका क्या है. लेकिन एक बात है, हम इज्जत करते हैं. तुम अगर शलम कहते हो तो हम भी तुमको सलाम कहते हैं. इफ यू से सलाम देन. और ये काम मैं चाहता हूं आपको दिखाऊं, ये वर्ल्ड पीस ऑर्डर पे मेरी किताब है जो आपके से छपी है. बिलीव मी, आई रिसीव्ड एन इंटरनेशनल अवार्ड फॉर दिस, एम्बेसडर फॉर पीस. एंड रिसेंटली, बिफोर 3 months, I got published my this book, Western Perception of Islam and Global Terrorism, from US, published from US, and best selling on Amazon right now. क्यों? बस ये, आप इज्जत अगर करवाना चाहते हैं दुनिया में, if you really want to be respected, pay respect to the prophets, messengers, respected areas, because we always pay respect to humanity, and we always pay respect to female, children, even animals. That's all. This is our religion. This is my religion. This is my culture. This is my orientation. And this is my commitment. As long as I am living in this world, I would be leaving a message behind me. The message of peace from Islam. This is my life. That's all. Nothing else.
Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate your
hypocrisy.
words.
Very simple. क्या करेंगे?
I really appreciate your words. Thank you, sir. Moving to our next speaker, Khaled A. Beydoun, who is a law professor, lawyer, writer, and author of the impressive book, American Islamophobia, Understanding the Root and Rise of Fear. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. I would like to know your thoughts regarding the impact of Islamophobia. Sir, you may proceed now.
Thank you so much, and good morning. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. It's really exciting to be here with you this morning. So I'm a law professor in the States, and my research focuses specifically on the war on terror, and specifically the global war on terror. And what I'd like to do is to do two things. First, discuss the genesis and the expansion of the war on terror and how that war on terror gave rise to what we now understand as Islamophobia. So initially speaking, we all know that the war on terror began after the September 11th terror attacks in the United States. It was initially a domestic war intended to crack down on alleged terrorism taking place in the United States, but also was happening globally with the rise of terror groups like Al-Qaeda and other networks that they are linked with in the region. As a consequence of this global war on terror, it intersected with the existence of a number of nation states that had an objective to persecute their own Muslim populations. States like India, Myanmar, China, host nations obviously today, which are home to some of the most atrocious, some of the most vile campaigns of Islamophobia. What the American war on terror did was very nefarious, but also very facilitative of what's taking place today in these countries. It introduced this system and this language that Muslim identity and expressions of Muslim identity are presumptive of terrorism. And it also ushered in this conflation that Muslim identity and exclusively Muslim identity was tied to terrorism. As a consequence of this conflation and this language, and we all know that over the course of the last decades, the United States was the greatest superpower in the world. So if you have the greatest superpower in the world, essentially endorsing the idea that Islam was a faith tied to terrorism and that expressions of Muslim identity are correlative with this propensity for terrorism, that's going to give license to governments to essentially do what they want to do to their Muslim populations within their countries. So the fact that the United States, in furthering its war on terror, was giving credence in endorsing India, China, Myanmar, obviously what's happening in Europe now with France, enabling their ability to intensify persecution of their Muslim populations through the war on terror. This opened the doors essentially for these governments to do what they wanted to do with regard to persecuting and punishing their Muslim populations. And that's how we get to Islamophobia. And in the book that you mentioned, and also in my academic research, I go on to define what Islamophobia is. And part of the reason why I want to theorize and introduce a new definition of Islamophobia is because I thought the existing definitions were lacking, and I thought that the existing definitions were too one-dimensional. Before I wrote the book, Islamophobia was broadly understood to be fear or hatred toward Islam. It was viewed to be a form of bigotry or animus that was specifically tied to the acts of the individual, private individuals. And that wasn't enough. For me, I wanted to problematize what Islamophobia meant and introduce it as a broader and more intricate system. So I'll just briefly introduce how I define Islamophobia. And obviously, I'd like to lobby the audience and individuals watching this webinar today to really obviously acknowledge the complexity of Islamophobia as a three-dimensional system. The first dimension being private Islamophobia, which is the bigotry, suspicion, violence inflicted by private individuals. An example of this would be the mob violence we have in India, for instance, right? When you have private mobs, private gangs on the street getting together and attacking Muslims or choosing to vandalize a mosque. That would be an example of private Islamophobia. Then we have structural or institutionalized Islamophobia, which is the Islamophobia that is coming specifically from state action. This is activity on part of the government, and we see structural Islamophobia exhibited through the enactment of laws, whether it be laws like the Muslim ban here in the United States or laws that are enacted in India like the CAA, right? These laws are manifestations of structural or institutional Islamophobia. Again, Islamophobia that's enacted or enforced by a state actor. And finally, and most critically, I introduced the concept of dialectical Islamophobia. It's critical to understand that Islamophobia is a dialectic, and this dialectic is perpetuated when the state engages in passage of Islamophobic law, but also state leaders engage in expression of very brazen anti-Muslim rhetoric, right? Modi is a classic example of a politician who engages in very brazen anti-Muslim rhetoric. Donald Trump would be another example. And obviously now we see in France how Emmanuel Macron is spewing very dangerous and express anti-Muslim rhetoric, which has the dialectical effect of inciting private Islamophobic violence on the ground. So it's critical to understand that when politicians are saying things like Islam hates us or Islam is a violent religion, this rhetoric has the effect of emboldening, inciting, and authorizing individuals on the ground to engage in private violence towards Muslims. And this is the broader system, this is the broader context that is giving rise to Islamophobia, not only in South Asia, but around the world. It's become a language, it's become a political strategy that politicians, especially populist politicians, capitalize on to further their own political objectives, but also to carry forward their nationalist objectives. I mean, we see in India, for instance, where the Hindutva vision, right, is a Hindu nationalist vision, which is using Islamophobia to shore up the idea that Muslims are outsiders, Muslims are immigrants, Muslims are inimical to the national body. So Islamophobia becomes a political weapon that enables these Hindu nationalists to convince and persuade people on the ground to rid the nation of a Muslim minority population that they consider and deem to be, again, inassimilable with their vision of what India looks like. This is exactly what's happening in China, right? So the fact that you have the Uyghur Muslim population in the northwest territory of China, the Chinese government today, which is looking to expand its Silk Road, which overlaps with the territory in which Uyghur Muslims live, has also cast and classified Uyghur Muslims as subversives, as individuals that cannot be assimilated with the Chinese population. This is also the case in Myanmar, obviously, where an atrocious ethnic cleansing and roughly 1 million people have been expelled and displaced from that land. This is obviously the case as we speak right now with what's happening in France, right? France has become the new site, the next site, the new epicenter of global Islamophobia, where a vile act, right? So let's just be clear and call it what it is, that this beheading of a teacher by a young Muslim student was a horrific and vile act. But that vile act does not justify the disproportionate response on behalf of the state to effectively cast the entire population of France, 8 million Muslims, as automatically not being French, not being individuals who can be assimilated into that population on account of them being cast categorically as terrorists. So this is, in order to understand and appreciate this broader sort of phenomenon of what I call, global Islamophobia, it's critical to understand how it works theoretically speaking, and that's why understanding it as a 3-part framework is really important. So I'll stop there, but I'm excited to field any questions and comments from the audience. And I look forward to hearing from my friend Asif, who I've been in communication with for a very long time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for the detailed answer and informative. Now for the further discussion, I would like to invite our last speaker of the webinar, Mohammad Asif Khan, who is an Indian Muslim activist and have been documenting cases of mob lynching, hate crimes and Islamophobia in India since last few years. I'm glad to have you, sir. You know, Islamophobia in India is another level. So what is your opinion in this?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me on this forum for putting my views on very important topic, Islamophobia and its effect on human rights in South Asia. First of all, Islamophobia is not limited to some certain countries or certain region or in subcontinent or in India. It's a global issue. From America to Australia, you see every day Muslims are facing hate crimes or discriminations in every country where they are in minority because of their religious identity. So Islamophobia, the problem is that there are so many forms of racism in the world. Like there is homophobia, anti-Semitism, casteism, apartheid. But Islamophobia is not recognized as a form of racism. Everywhere in the world there are laws to prevent the racist attack or racism. Like if you speak something against Jews, then they will call you anti-Semitic, and there are laws to punish you. If you speak something against LGBT, then there are laws, they will call you homophobic, and you can be punished under some certain laws. But if you speak anything against Islam, maybe you will be rewarded. So this is the hypocrisy of the world. There are two terms. One is free speech and another is hate speech. So they use those terms conveniently, which suit their political agenda. If you write some hateful content against some certain or particular ethnic group or religious minority or sexual minority, they will call it hate speech. But if you write or speak some hateful content against Muslim or Islam, that would be called a freedom of expression or freedom of speech. So this is how they normalize Islamophobia across the globe. Now come to the point that how Islamophobia affecting citizens in South Asian countries. So first of all, if you look the track record of South Asian countries, in human right index or religious freedom index, the situation is very bad. Whether it's India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Burma, which now is called Myanmar, even in Sri Lanka, the situation is not very good. So, what is the reason behind Islamophobia? The reason is it is politically motivated things. I believe so. I have spoke to so many Muslims in India. My friend, I discuss about Islamophobia with them. They say we are being targeted. We Muslims are being targeted across the globe because other people, non-Muslim, do not understand our religion. They have certain misconceptions regarding Islam. They lack understanding of Islam, and that's why we are being targeted. I do not agree with such kind of theory, because if this is the case, then everyone should be. I mean, we Muslim do not know anything about Christianity. We don't know everything about Sikhism. We don't know everything about Hinduism. So, are we spreading hatred against certain religion? The answer is no. This is pure bigotry and fanaticism. This has nothing to do with the lack of understanding or having misconception. It's supposed to be, for example, if I have some misconception regarding my mathematics solution or physics law, it doesn't mean I would hate my mathematics teacher or I would hate my physics teacher. I would go to him and I would ask, sir, I have this problem, this misconception. Please explain me. What is the correct answer? But this does not happen in case of Islamophobia. It means this is a political motivated things. So if the problem is political, the solution should be political. Like if you see in India, India has approximate 14% Muslim of the total population, 200 million Muslim in India right now. No one can claim that people don't know some basic things about such large section of the population. Surely they know what is wrong, what is right, but still Islamophobia is at peak in India right now. So what is the reason behind it? The reason is this is politically motivated, and not only in India, anywhere in world. Islamophobia is a tool to win elections. This is very basic thing. What happening for France right now? It is not just because they don't know anything about Islam. They certainly know everything about Islam, Muslim, but they are targeting Charlie Hebdo. That Charlie Hebdo. I don't know how it is being pronounced. That magazine has been shut down decades ago because of bankruptcy. It was not earning very well, and now they are publishing Islamophobic and offensive cartoon, and this is how they are getting support. So Islamophobia is a multi-million dollar industry where if you spread hatred against Muslim, if you spread misinformation regarding Islam, then you would earn billions of dollars, millions of dollars. You will be in power. So this is the game being played by those people who want to hold power in their respective countries. Even if you see what happened after 9/11 attack, the Iraq invasion or attack in Afghanistan, everything is political reason. But the problem is that those people who commit such kind of violence in the name of the liberty or freedom of expression, they have political backing everywhere. They do not commit it on individual level. And this is how they escape all kind of loopholes. For example, in India, now whenever a mob lynching happens, where a Muslim is being lynched for having mutton, meat or beef or whatever, a mob comes, they lynch a Muslim and nothing happens. Because they are backed by system, they have political backing. So this is how they target Muslims. Like in Myanmar as well, the Myanmar Rohingya has been facing the state-sponsored genocide since so many years, but nothing happened to Myanmar. If, you can imagine outrage if a Muslim country have done the same to its minority. if a Muslim majority country like any Gulf countries or Pakistan have committed same kind of atrocities on its minorities, the reaction would be different from the world community. International community would have reacted in a different way. So this is all about politics and all about how you manage media and narration. Like in India or in Myanmar or even in Sri Lanka, I have been checking cases of Islamophobia in Sri Lanka. In 2018, there were communal riots, anti-Muslim. The reason was that some individual Muslim has some kind of clash with a Syriac Buddhist. He was from the majority community. The same, there was some clash because of some road accident or some accident happened on the road. So there was some clash between them, and this is how the things goes on the next level. And there was there was anti-Muslim communal riots across the different cities in the Sri Lanka. After 2019 Easter bomb blast which took place in Sri Lanka, there were grassroots level communal riots happened. More than 30 mosques have been attacked, and more than 50 Muslim owned shops have been were attacked in the Sri Lanka, and approximate 100 more than 100 houses were burned down or being attacked in Sri Lanka. So these people who are in power, they are using their state machinery, or they are using their all kind of state apparatus to persecute Muslim. We as a Muslim never thought to counter it on political level. This is the big problem. I will further explain how a political problem should be countered with a political solution and not the religious one. Like if suppose in Burma, Myanmar, the Rohingya problem is not come into existence overnight. If you look at the history, Myanmar has introduced their Citizenship Act in 1982. According to that Citizenship Act, they asked their citizens to prove their Burmese ancestry before 1823. If you cannot prove your ancestor were residing in the land of Burma much before 1823, you will be denied citizenship. So what happened at that time? So many Rohingya people who have been living in that land since generation were failed to prove their ancestry, their Burmese ancestry, and they became stateless. So since then, there were state-sponsored violence against them. But in 2012 and in 2016, it escalated when Burmese army cracked down upon the Rohingyas. Then 1,000 people have been killed, and there was incident of mass rape, and approximate 700,000 people had to leave or had to migrate from that country. They were living in now in as a refugee in Bangladesh, India, or many other countries. So this is how things goes up. There is a saying that Holocaust does not start with the gas chamber. It always starts with the hate speech. So it takes always time. And everything is political. Like I said, how things politically happens in Burma, Myanmar. The same thing happened in Sri Lanka, where government or the majority society has a political backing, and now we know what's happening in India, especially after 2014. Like my brother Khaled Beydoun said that there are different type of Islamophobia. Individual group or individual people commit crimes against Muslims, like mob lynching in India, and then there is one state sponsored. But I would like to say one thing, that individual crime cannot happen on such large scale if it does not have political backing. Because if I assume that your government or your law are unbiased and they are truly secular, then if an individual commit any kind of crime, state will punish him. State will not defend the perpetrator, attackers. So their individual crime, they committed their individual crime are very much part of that state policy. And when mob lynching started in India, I think Narendra Modi became Prime Minister on 26th of May in 2014, and the first mob lynching took place on 2nd of June, just 1 week after he took oath as a Prime Minister. At that time, people took it as a, I mean, just general crime. They didn't take it very seriously. And after that, there have been a series of mob lynching and the discrimination and hate crimes where people were being attacked for donning hijab or sporting a beard. And after 2019, the things go for another level, which is state sponsored, which Khalid Badai mentioned that like when your government is passing some laws which is discriminatory in the nature, like India has introduced the Citizenship Act and NRC. So this is how things goes. First, individual commit crime on their level, then it becomes the subject of state policy. So this is the same thing happening in France right now. If you take example, a individual teacher has made some kind of cartoon, right? They do not have any kind of policy to stop such kind of things. When you make offensive or hateful cartoon, or you make hate speech, then state should have a policy or law so that the person who commits such kind of crime can be prosecuted under that law. They do not have such kind of law. In fact, the French government has supported that act. If an individual made that offensive cartoon, French government should not have published it on their government building, but they did openly. So this is how things start. The individual commits some offensive crime or the hate crime, and then the government is supporting it. Now, of course, that guy who has committed a crime, he has stabbed that teacher. That's really condemnable. No one should do such kind of things. So this indicates one more thing, that Muslim in general, anywhere in the world, whether it's India or Myanmar, Sri Lanka, or in Western country, we do not have political awareness. That's a very big problem. Because what I have observed in my personal opinion is that when those people commit crime against Muslim, like America has done so many crime against humanity. If you look at how they spoiled Afghanistan or Iraq, but there is a difference. They are cunning people. They have entire system in their hand. When I say system, I don't mean just parliament. The system means they have parliament, they have media. Media is most important thing in a system, and then they have security forces. So then first they manage their narrative, which is very important. As Malcolm X said decades ago, that newspaper would love to would make you love with the oppressor and would make you hate oppressed people. So this is how now we are living 21st century. So we are not dealing with the newspaper only. We have electronic media, print media, and social media, which cannot be controlled. And those states or those countries who have policy of Islamophobia, they are using social media to propagate to instigate the violence against the Muslim. Now, how Muslims should react, or how we can overcome Islamophobia? So, if you want to, first of all, you need to know what kind of problem it is. Is it a religious problem? The answer is no. As I explained earlier, Islamophobia is not the result of misconception. It is a pure bigotry and a political motivated agenda. So the solution should be political. Unfortunately, we Muslims anywhere in the world are not political literate. We do not have political awareness. We don't even know how to react to certain things, how to manage things, how to make narratives, how to counter their narratives. So when they commit crime, they use some new political terminology like freedom of speech, freedom of expression, liberty. Recently, I'm giving an example when they made that offensive cartoon of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. they call it freedom of expression, right? So this is their new political terminology. How we countered it? Most Muslim calling it blasphemy. This is very old-fashioned religious terminology. Instead of calling it just a blasphemy, if we prove that it is a hate speech actually, we need to prove it is a hate speech. If you say blasphemy, it wouldn't make an effect with them. They would say we are not religious people. If you are not religious, why would they? Why would we believe in the concept of blasphemy? We don't believe in your God. We don't believe in your prophet. So we don't care about blasphemy or your blasphemy law. But if we prove that this is a hate speech actually, then they would have to think about it, because they claim they are a country of liberty, fraternity, etc., etc. So hate speech, they will have to agree that okay, it is hate speech. So it is our responsibility to reply in their own language. We cannot use our language. We cannot say this is blasphemy. We need to explain them this is hate speech. And when I'm saying explain, I mean I don't mean them being apologetic about our religious identity. I mean counter them in a political move. We have 80, 90 Muslim countries across the world. They are member of United Nations and they are wealthy countries. They can set their own narrative on media, international media. They can deliver speech in United Nations and can prove how making offensive caricature of Prophet Muhammad is not freedom of speech, but it's a hate speech. Remember how Jews were targeted in Nazi Germany. It started with the hate speech. If you, I was day before yesterday, I was looking some cartoons from the Nazi Germany. It was against Jews. If in today's world, if you show those cartoons, anyone who show those cartoons or draw those cartoons, he will be immediately called a Nazi person or anti-Semitic. So those cartoons does not come under the freedom of speech or freedom of expression, but the Prophet's cartoon come under freedom of expression because we fail to prove it as a hate speech. So we need to set our narrative as well, and it cannot be happen. It can't happen without without education. I mean political education. I am not talking about some engineering or medical degree, but political education is very important, and unfortunately we lack about it. So I hope Indian Muslim and those other Muslim around the world who are minority, like in Europe or Western world or in our subcontinent, they will understand those things, because there is a thing. See, the moment you born anywhere in the world, politics has start with you. Like if you are born in a white community, you will be privileged for all life. You will enjoy all kind of privilege in your life till your last breath. Why? Because of politics. If you are born a black in America, you will face all kind of discrimination for all your life. Why? Because of politics. So you need to understand how any kind of politics which is based on racism, or which is based on sexism, which is based on Islamophobia or anti-Semitism, it direct affect your life. So those people who are victim of hate politics, they need to understand one thing, that if you will not participate in politics, if you won't do politics, then someone else will do politics with your life, and you will be ended up being the victim of that politics. I hope Muslim around the world will think from this perspective. This is my personal opinion.
I
And
totally agreed, sir. I really appreciate your words. Thank you so much. We have few questions from our participants. Dear participants, may you ask now.
Hello everyone. I'm from Pakistan. As a researcher, I came across daily such news clips like the terror attacks in Paris, US, and other European countries. So, in my views of what I think is that Islamophobia is negatively affecting the mentality of the people. So, my question is from Khaled Beydoun. That what do you think that to what extent would that Islamophobia is more a form of racism than religious intolerance?
I think it's both a form of racism and religious intolerance depending on context. So in my work, I'm very careful to point out that Islamophobia in different countries is distinct. In some countries like the United States where I live, there's mass ignorance about the faith of Islam, and Islam and Muslim identity has been deeply racialized, right? It's been racially constructed as a largely Arab, Middle Eastern, non-white identity. So the way in which most Americans, and for a long time the American government thought of Muslim identity was in deeply racial terms as a consequence of this ignorance. But if you go to, but somewhere in India, it's dramatically different. It would seem to me that it's more a form of religious intolerance because the vast majority of people in India have a greater familiarity with the religion of Islam because Islam in many respects is an indigenous religion to India. Muslims in India have been there for centuries upon centuries. So Hindus and members of other faiths deeply understand and know Muslims, have lived alongside Muslims for a very long time. So they understand it more in deeply religious terms than they do in the United States. So the variable here is context. The big variable is degree of familiarity with religion in terms of how it's conceived of from the perspective of the culprit of Islamophobia.
Thank you so much, sir. And for the vote of thanks and conclude this online session, I would like to invite Dr. Khuram Hedi. He's a director of South Asia Research Institute for Minorities. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to all speakers of this webinar, The Impact of Islamophobia on Human Rights in South Asia. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Professor Dr. Muhammad Ahmed Qadri for his wonderful and elaborative explanation of the topic, including the suggested solutions. Further, we are very grateful to Mr. Khaled A. Beydoun for sharing such great knowledge with us. And I like to express our sincere thanks to Mr. Muhammad Asif for his excellent speech covering the important aspects. To conclude, Islamophobia associated with negative prejudices against Muslim and Islam lead to construction of anti-Islam. The prejudice is based on a claim that Islam is a religion that can threat the dominant values in society, but Islam is surely a religion of peace. The phenomenon of Islamophobia can be assessed by two perspectives, sociological and psychological. In case of Islamophobia, the media, especially the social media, became the object of analysis because it has the dichotomy function and they become the cause for the outbreak of Islamophobic symptoms. On the other hand, the media, including social media, is an information agent which has a very important role to provide education and social change effects. Therefore, the media can be an instrument, especially the social media. It can be an instrument or a strategy to overcome the turmoil of Islamophobia, and by involving a synergy of government, Islamic organization, the United Nations organization, and the institutions of higher education. A resolution may be passed by the UN in this regard. Once again, I want to say that we all are most grateful to all the speakers. We thank you for being with us today. It's been a very great pleasure for us. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for your valued time and sharing with us your findings and opinion. A big thank you from all of us. We look forward to have you back again. Take care. See you soon. Allah Hafiz.
Inshallah. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you.